whatever the statement I want to execute, that should be written inside the body of loop. At the beginning itself, I know that how many times I want to repeat the statement. In that time, I can go with for loop. When I am not sure about the total number of iteration, in that time I am going to use while statement. Whatever the condition, I am going to specify at the end. Even though if it is false, but still it's going to execute the statement at least once. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on constants, variables and data types. I'm your Revati ma'am, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram, First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. In my today's session, I'm going to deal with the decision making. Before that, let me to revise the topic what I have discussed in my previous session of this unit. So I started with why I want decision making, and if I don't perform decision making, what's going to happen. Along with that, I have discussed if statement, if else statement, nested if statement as well as switch statement. Along with that, I have discussed the question mark colon operator. That's nothing but the ternary operator. So dear student, the simple if is called one-way branching. That means only one decision at a time. Then if else statement is called two-way branching. At the particular time, we can able to make two kind of decision. One is true and one is false. And nested if statement is also called multi-way branching and switch statement. When I'm going to use switch statement, when I have more option, in that time I'm going to use switch statement. So these are the certain topic I have discussed in my previous session of this unit. But from the examination point of view, this topic is very, very important, and even you can expect one sure question under this topic. Now, in my today's session, I'm going to deal with looping, and I'm going to deal with why I want looping and what are the different kinds of looping construct I'm going to have. So dear student, if I consider looping, I have three kinds of looping, that is while, do while and for loop. And why it is called looping? So looping in the sense what? So dear student, think that I want to print 1 to 10 numbers. So what I want to do here, I want to print 1 to 10 numbers. And if I write system dot out dot println print 1, system dot out dot println 2. So it's going to vary. How many times I'm going to write? 10 times. If it is 10 times, okay, fine. When I want to use same statement 100 times or 1000 times, then it is very difficult. And even if I write one by one, it becomes lengthy program as well as complex program. Now, I want smart program. So, I want simple program. I want easy debugging. For that, I'm going to have the looping construct. So, what is looping? That is nothing but the repetition. So, what is repetition? When I want to perform same kind of operation again and again, instead of writing same operation again and again and again, what I'm going to do? I'm going to use smart technique or smart method that is known as looping. So, if I consider Java program, I have the looping construct. Under looping construct, I have while, do while and for statement. Now, whatever the program or whatever the code I want to repeat, what I'm going to do? I'm going to place within the looping construct. So I can able to reduce the complexity, I can able to reduce the time, and I can able to reduce the length of the program, and it is very easy to debug. These are the advantages of looping construct. Now we came to know that what is looping and what are the three types of looping. Now let me to discuss what is while statement. So here, dear student, if I consider looping construct, the most commonly used looping construct here is while. So dear student, when I am going to use while construct, when I don't know how many times I want to repeat the iteration. That means when I am not sure about the total number of iteration, in that time I'm going to use while statement. So dear student, let me to consider simple example here. Think that I want to collect my hall ticket. To collect my hall ticket, what I want to show? I want to show my ID card to the hall ticket issuer or issuing person. So what is my entry point here? I'm going to show the ID card, then only I can able to collect the hall ticket. Similarly, here also I'm going to have the looping construct. That means at the beginning itself, I'm going to have the gatekeeper. What is the job of the gatekeeper? Is to check the condition. If the given condition is satisfied, then execute the block of statement. So dear student, when I discuss about statements, there are two kind of statement. One is simple statement and one is compound statement. So what is simple statement? That's nothing but when I have only one statement, then it is single statement. For example, I have hi. So only one line. Single statement. When I have hi, good morning, hello. So how many statements I have? 3 statements. And I want to execute all these 3 statements. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to write these 3 statements within the curly brace. And this is known as compound statement. So I have more than 3 lines. So when I have more than 2 lines, that statements are known as compound statement. So here I have the opening and closing curly brace. Within that, I'm going to write the loop body. That means what are the statement I want to execute when this particular condition is triggered. So while loop is also an entry controlled loop. So think that I want to enter into the college. So at the beginning, what I'm going to get? I'm going to get the gate. In that gate, we are going to have the gatekeeper. That's nothing but the security guard. What is the job of the security guard? Is to allow only the person or the student who is going to have the visiting card or the ID card. So the ID card or visiting card is nothing but the condition. Okay, and what is while here? That is nothing but the security guard. Now, where the loop body may contain single statement or compound statement. Now, see here, I have while and I have the condition, and if this condition is true, I'm going to execute set of statement. Now, first what I want to do, I want to declare the variable which I'm going to use in my while statement. Then, if that condition is true, I have certain set of statement. Now, whatever the increment or whatever the decrement I want to do according to my condition, that should be written inside the curly brace. So, the Loop iterates. Iterates in the sense what? Repeats or repeatedly execute while the loop condition, then when the loop condition becomes false, that means the looping statement is going to repeat or execute again and again until the given condition is true. When the condition is false, what the control will do is going to transfer to the next statement. That is nothing but the out from the looping construct. So in while loop, a loop controller variable should be initialized. So if I consider while loop, there is a variable called loop control variable that must be initialized before it is being used in the while statement, and the same looping variable must be incremented or decremented based on the condition. Now, to illustrate while statement, let me to write simple program. The student think that I want to print 1 to 5. Okay, now see here, I will take I, that is of type integer, I equal to 1 and n equal to 5. Now, these two are the looping variables. That means I am going to use these two variables in my loop. So, what I want to do? Before my loop, I want to initialize the variables. Now, I will write while I less than or equal to n. Okay, see, these are the two variables I am going to use in my while statement. Now, system.out.println, I'll write SOP, that's nothing but system.out.println, then I will display I. Okay, after displaying I, what I want to do? I want to increment I because I want to print my next number. So, initialization of the variables are done at the beginning and increment and decrement of the variables are written inside the curly brace. And this while statement is going to execute 5 times and I'm going to get the answer 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So, instead of writing same statement 5 times within one loop, that is within the while loop, I'm going to specify the condition and what are the things or what are the operations I want to perform, that is written inside the curly brace. Now, I'm going to have the another type of looping construct, that is do while statement. It is called exit control. It is called exit control. Now, when I'm going to use do while statement, dear student, even though my condition is false, but still I want to execute this statement at least once. That means the do while looping construct is used when I want to execute the statement at least once, even though my condition is false. That time I'm going to use do while statement. So here do while statement is an exit controlled loop. It evaluates the looping condition at the end of the bottom of the loop after executing its loop body statement. That means it's going to execute the statement which is present in the looping body. After execution of the statement, it's going to check the condition at the end. Now, let me to consider simple example here. Think that I'm late to attend the marriage function. So, before going to give the compliments, what I'm going to do? Think that it is around 1 o'clock. It's lunch time. So, what I'm going to do? First, I'm going to have the lunch. After my lunch, what I'm going to do? I'm going to hand over the complements. Similarly, here what I'm going to do? I'm going to execute this statement. Later, I'm going to check the condition. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to execute this statement and I'm going to check the condition at the end. Even though the condition is false, but still I'm going to execute this statement at least once. Now, dear student, let's see how this do while statement is going to execute. So I have the keyword do, okay, and I have the condition, and I'm going to place the semicolon at the end in order to indicate this is the end of the loop. Now, dear student, whatever the variables I'm going to use in my looping construct, that must be defined at the beginning. Then all the increments, decrement, as well as which statement I want to execute, that should be written inside the curly brace, and I'm going to check the condition at the end. I'm going to put the semicolon. Now, let me to write simple example for do while statement. So, I'm going to use the keyword do. And this simple code is used to print 1 to 5 numbers. I want to print 1 to 5 numbers. So, dear student, in my do while looping construct, I'm going to use some looping variables. Before going to use those looping variables, that must be initialized. And where I'm going to initialize above the do. Say I have data type int I, that is 1 and n equal to 5. So why n equal to 5? Because I want to display 1 to 5. Okay, so the last number I want here is 5. Now, what I will do, I just want to print 1. So system dot out dot print ln, and I'll print I. Now what I want to do, I just want to increment I. So I equal to I plus 1, or I can able to write I plus plus. Now I'm going to write the condition. While I less than or equal to n. And why it is less than or equal to n? Because I'm going to start from 1, and when I want to stop, when I reach n. Now this is the simple code. Now see here, this is my looping variable and this is also my looping variable. Before going to use these variables in my loop, what I'm going to do, I'm going to initialize the variables. And even though whatever the condition I'm going to specify at the end, even though if it is false, but still it's going to execute the statement at least once. And at the end, I'm going to check the condition. Now, I'm going to have the for statement. So, this is the most commonly used looping construct. And when I'm going to use for looping construct, when I know early itself that how many number of times I want to repeat this statement. That means I know at the beginning itself how many times I want to repeat this statement. For example, if I get the question like print the natural number n equal to 10. So n equal to 10. At the beginning itself I know how many times I want to repeat this statement. 10 times. In that time, I'm going to use for loop. So, for loop is a entry control loop. So, it is also work like gatekeeper. That means at the beginning itself, I'm going to have the condition checker. That means at the beginning itself, I'm going to check the condition. If that condition is true, execute. Else, execute the rest of the statement. So, here for looping construct is going to have 3 parts, that is initialization, looping condition, as well as increment and decrement. I repeat, For loop includes three parts. One is initialization, looping condition, and increment or decrement, and how to separate through semicolon. Now, whatever the statement I want to execute, that should be written inside the body of loop. So, dear student, initialization in the sense what? Whatever the initial value I want to define, that should be written in this part. And whatever the condition I want to check, that should be written inside the looping condition. And what about increment and decrement? So here, increment or decrement, that depends on the condition, and based on my condition, I'm going to increment the variable or I'm going to decrement the variable. So the initialization expression is executed once. That means if I consider for loop, the initialization condition is going to execute only once. After the initialization is done, next I'm going to check the condition. So the loop condition is executed before the body of the loop. That means before going to execute the body of the loop, we must check the condition. If the condition is true, the body of the loop will be executed. In the sense, when the condition is true, whatever the thing we are going to write inside the body is going to execute, and we have to update the expression is executed after the body of the loop. That means the update expression is going to execute after the body of the loop. That means once the execution of the loop is over, then I want to increment or decrement the variable. So this is the way our for loop is going to execute. Now let me to write simple program here. Same program, that is I want to print 1 to 5. Now see here, if I consider while, I have written at the beginning, I initialized I equal to 1, n equal to 5. Then while I less than or equal to n. If this condition is true, what I want to do, I am going to print, that is system dot out dot print ln, and I am going to print I, and I am going to increment I by 1. So this is the statement I have written. Now I just want to transfer this while statement to for loop. So what I want to do, first I want to use the keyword for, and what is the first part of for loop? Initialization. And what I want to initialize? Variable, that is int I equal to 0. Then I want to check the condition. What condition? I less than or equal to n. Here n is nothing but 5. So directly I'll write I less than or equal to 5. After that, each time I want to increment I, because after 1 I want to display 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. So each time I'm going to increment I by 1. So this is my for loop. Now what I want to display? I just want to display system dot out dot print ln, and I want to print I value. See what I did here? I just transferred while to for. Even if I have the statement in for, I can able to convert that into while or do while. Even though if I have this statement in while or do while, I can able to transfer it to for loop. So dear student, I can able to use any looping construct based on my need. Now when I'm going to use while loop, when I don't know how many times I want to iterate this statement. Now when I'm going to use do while, I just want to execute the statement at least once, even though the condition is failed or false, I want to execute. And when I'm going to use for loop. At the beginning itself, I know that how many times I want to repeat this statement. In that time, I can go with for loop. Now, dear student, I'm going to have the comparison. See here, I have the for, I have the while, and I have the do. Now, see here. First for, and I'm going to have the initialization, then I'm going to have the condition, and I'm going to have the increment or decrement that is based on my program condition. Then I'm going to have the set of statement. If I consider while, see here also this is entry testing condition, and even if I consider while, it's also entry point. So this is also entry point. First, what I want to do, I want to initialize the looping variables. Then I want to check the condition. Then if this condition is true, I want to execute certain set of statement. Now here, if I consider do, once again, I'm going to have the initialization. Then I'm going to have the keyword called do. Then whatever the statement I want to execute, that should be written inside the body of the loop. And even I'm going to write increment as well as decrement statement in my body of the loop. And at the end, I'm going to check the condition. And here I want to place the semicolon. So where I'm going to place the semicolon? In my do while. That means do execute these many statement and check the condition at the end. Now, I'm going to have another topic, that is nested for loop. Nested for loop in the sense what? Within one for loop, I can able to write another for loop. Now, what is the need of nested for loop? When I have matrix, to read the matrix or to print the matrix or to perform addition of two matrix, I want nested for loop. Any looping construct can also be nested. Any looping construct I can able to nest, in the sense within one looping construct I can able to write another looping construct. See here, this is my outer for loop and this is my inner for loop. So this is my outer for loop and this is my inner for loop. Now first, outer for loop is going to execute. Even if this condition is true, the control enters into the inner for loop and it's going to execute. When this condition get failed, then the control transfer to outer for loop. So this is the way the nested for loop is going to execute. Now let me to write simple example here. Think that I want to read 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is this? It is my matrix, that is in the form of 2 cross 2 matrix. Now I'll write for I equal to 0 semicolon I less than 2 semicolon I plus plus. Now for j equal to 0 j less than 2 semicolon j plus plus, and I want to print system dot out dot print. Think that it is array of I and j. So why it is array? Because if I consider matrix representation, this is my 0th column and first column. This is my 0th row and this is my first row. So here 0, 0 and 0, 1. 1, 0 and 1, 1. See here. So initially I is 0, I less than 2, it is true. That is 0 less than 2, it is true. Now j is how much? 0, 0 less than 2, the condition is true. Now a of 0, 0, that is nothing but this place. Now think that j is going to increment, j is 1. Now j is 1, 1 less than 2, the condition is true. So a of 0, 1, this one. Now j is incremented by 1, Now j is 2. 2 less than 2, the condition is false. The control transferred to outer for loop. Now I is incremented by 1. I is 1. 1 less than 2. The condition is true. Now I'm going to execute inner for loop. So here j is 0. 0 less than true. The condition is true. Now I'm going to have a of 1 0. That is nothing but this index. Now j is incremented by 1. Now j is 1. 1 less than 2. The condition is true. So I'm going to have the index 1 1. Now j is incremented by 1. J is 2. 2 less than 2. The condition is failed. So what I'm going to do? The control transfer to outer for loop. Now I is incremented by 1. Now I is 2. 2 less than 2. The condition is false. So the control transfer to rest of the statement. This is the way I can able to use nested for loop. Nested for loop in the sense what? Within one for loop, I'm going to have the another for loop. Anyway, dear student, in my today's session, I started with looping construct. That is nothing but the repetition or iteration. But in my next session, I'm going to deal with Java methods, how to overload the methods, as well as math class, which is supported by the Java programming language. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with new concept, that is Java methods. Until that, keep watching and keep learning and keep smiling. Thank you.